today, before I call on the individual speakers, why I asked to bring a mobile phone to this session. So the only session here that you're allowed a mobile phone. So we're going to have a go at using the Slido platform, which is an interactive way for us to get information of you guys. So to do that, those of you that do have a phone, pull them out and sort of hold it up so I can see how many of you. Yeah. Now, if you don't have one, if you're sitting around someone that does, they can put multiple entries in. Good, okay. So, are we close enough to scan that QR code? If not, I think we're really going to have to move forward anyway, because we don't have a mic. So, everyone who's in the back here, I'm going to ask you to bring your chairs directly to the very front. Yeah, because I don't know how the connection speed's going to be. Okay. The first poll that we're doing is, at this stage, even if you have really not much of an idea, what do you picture yourself doing straight after school? You know, I know you'll be asked this a lot, especially those that are in year 11 or year 12. What are you doing after school? No pressure. I'm not following through on it. But at this stage, what do you see yourself doing after school? Studying at university, completing a trade qualification, so an apprenticeship or a traineeship, going back and working on the family business or property, working but not on a family property, so it might be going away to work, going up north, working for a contractor on another property, or maybe travelling overseas. So if you all enter an option in, if you've got someone beside you without a phone, can you please, so we've got no phones here, might not have enough. Can we all put one in for each other? Say to your mate, what do you want to do? Put it in. What do you want to do? Good? Okay. Okay. I'll click it over. Okay, so 35% have said they plan to study at university. 35% complete a trade qualification. 24%, oh, we're dropping, we're moving. 22%, we're going to go back and work at home. Working somewhere else, and no one's planning to travel in their year after school. Okay, so the leading plans at this stage is completing a trade qualification. Oh, travelling's just become a really good idea. Sounds like fun. We might hear more about that. Okay, so scan, I think you'll have to scan again for this one. No? Does it just pop up? Okay, so this question is now, what are some jobs relating to the beef industry that you can think of? So what jobs are out there that you're currently aware of that are relating to the beef industry? So you've got to put your thinking caps on a bit more. Talk amongst yourselves because we don't have many phones. You guys here, what's a job that's relating to cattle? Nutritionist. Someone pop nutritionist in here. What have we got?
Meatworks.
Meatworks? Working at the meatworks? Or meat in processing jobs? Big sort of field of processing jobs. Oh, Ringer seems to be they're standing out. Ringer and the agents. This is good. Okay. Auctioneer, agent, farmer, a cow, a butcher, a vet, agribusiness, auctioneer, contract mustering, marketing and advertising, station hand, bull scanning, truck driver, stock agent, repro work. Pretty good. Doing well. So, oh yeah, I don't know what the thrower boy Clancy is. Okay. You guys have actually done a lot better than me because I was throwing a few out there that you may not have thought of, but you actually got quite a few of them anyway. So what the goal with this session was to really push you and your ideas about the diversity in jobs that are available and relating to the beef industry. I know when I was going through school, I probably only had enough that would fit on one hand of positions and opportunities for me in the beef industry when I was very passionate about it. So I'm actually really pleased to see the diversity that you guys were able to put up there. And as we go in with our speakers today, we're about to learn a lot more about what the day-to-day activities are and pathways for quite a few of these positions here. So, which I think, this brings me to introducing Emily McNair.
Good morning all, my name is Emily McNair and I work with Australian Agricultural Company and I work with those guys as a breeding and genetics advisor. So one of the questions that Sarah actually asked us to speak to was describe yourself in 3 words, which is probably one of my favourite questions because it really makes you think about who you actually are, what your reputation actually is. Reputation, which is probably one of the most pivotal parts of how the beef industry actually functions. I think all of us here can really attest to the fact that reputation is such an important part of how we actually work in our day-to-day roles and how we've come to be where we are. But reputations can be both good and bad. And so to give you an honest view of who I actually am, I thought it would be a pretty good idea to reflect on some of the commentary that actually came from some of my senior school report cards. Emily is pressure prompted and leaves her tasks until last minute. Emily is a vivacious and highly influential leader. However, her dynamic presence occasionally has led her peers towards less productive behaviour. While Emily's willingness to question and challenge ideas shows her critical thinking abilities, she would benefit from developing a better understanding of the importance of rules and authority. There was also some good feedback. Emily consistently demonstrates remarkable empathy. Her willingness to support her peers who may feel marginalised or overlooked showcases her strong sense of social justice. Emily is a pragmatic thinker. She assesses challenges realistically and develops practical solutions. And her dedication to her studies is evident in the high quality of work and consistent academic achievements. I think it's actually pretty comical though that what was probably some of my worst qualities at school have actually become some of my best in the workplace. Things like being able to challenge the norm, that is instrumental in my role as a breeding and genetics advisor, where I'm constantly trying to drive innovation within our business. Or even probably a little bit more of a balanced approach to challenging authority, but it's been an enormous part of how I've actually gotten things over the line or how we've actually started inciting change within the beef industry. So, but I think so much of the characteristics that I have as a person are an attribute to the people, the places and the experiences that I've had. And a large part of it actually comes from my mum and dad. And so when I was growing up, my mum and dad actually managed a cattle station in the southwest of Queensland, out in the Channel Country. And it was 2.8 million acres. It was about 3 hours to the nearest town, and there was 17 bloody wild young ringers out there. And if I had to describe my childhood, I would say that it was a baptism by fire. It was a life and land of all extremes. If it wasn't on fire, it was flooding. Before it would rain, it was always dry. And just when things were quiet, there was always an accident. So mum and dad had their hands pretty bloody full, and myself and my 2 brothers were largely raised in the stock camp, where we're learning all sorts of skills, how to be independent, how to be courageous, how to think for ourselves, even just trying to survive and not kill each other. But I think throughout all of this wild, chaotic adventure on this station, mum and dad demonstrated some pretty instrumental leadership, but they also demonstrated a constant love of learning and seeking new challenges. My mum did her master's degree while dad did his pilot's licence. My mum started learning how to drive road trains while dad started looking at more sustainable grazing practices. I onlooked as mum and dad constantly sought to drive change. They embraced change and they adapted with the times. When later in life I went off to boarding school. I went to boarding school at Downlands College in Toowoomba, and it was here that I flourished in socialising and pushing the boundaries. But I also loved art and legal studies, and in particular English. My teachers in these subjects were incredible. They taught me to be bold and creative, and probably inspired within me a love of literature and a love of learning that I still have today. But it would make logical sense that if you're interested in a career in the beef industry, that you would probably pursue some subjects like ag science or biology or chemistry or even business. However, unfortunately, after a practical joke went a little bit wrong on the ag science teacher at Downlands College in year 9, I was trying to steer well clear of where I wasn't welcome. And she also taught biology and chemistry, so it wasn't a great idea to attend either of those classes. And so after that, I was a little bit concerned. We were always told that if we wanted to go to university to study ag science or veterinary science or agribusiness, that we should do the prerequisite subjects. And I was a bit concerned that I'd blown my one shot at getting a career in the beef industry and eventually going off to uni. And so I was discussing this issue with my English teacher at the time. And it was 2 bits of advice that she actually gave me. She used to always say to me, "Em, there's nothing like a good book to keep you out of trouble." And she also said that learning is best achieved in the school of hard knocks and real life experience. And so with that advice and a great deal of mentoring from her, I actually went off and sought every opportunity to try and gain some real life experience in the beef industry. So it was around this time that I went off and worked at a feedlot, where I think the best day I actually had at the feedlot was when I graduated from trough cleaning and finally got to start inducting cattle and pen riding. I went and worked for a bovine repro vet, where I started learning the opportunities of AI and ET in cattle, and where I also started learning how to preg test. I went and worked for on a droving mob through the Diamantina channels. That was probably the most memorable. It was an incredibly enriching experience where I got to listen to the stories of the pioneers and the drovers that had settled the lands, and I loved camping outdoors, and in particular loved being able to read the cattle all day and just watch what they were doing. It was a great experience. I also worked at a butcher shop where I learnt how much the customer actually cares about animal welfare and how much they're willing to pay for quality. I also learned how to start making sales, and probably also the best damn barbecue sausages I reckon you'll ever have. That was also a skill that's come incredibly handy throughout my life. But once I actually finished school, I made the decision to defer my uni offers and to go and work for a contract mustering camp in the Territory. I thought the adventure was just too good to resist, and so I set off up there and could not wait to be far from the school gates and couldn't wait to be camped out every single day. I wanted to check out what the live export industry actually looked like, and I really wanted to see how feral the cattle actually were up there. I wanted a good challenge. And so after a couple of great seasons up there, I eventually came back to Queensland. It was around sort of 2019, and the season up there was becoming pretty dire. The work was a little bit less enjoyable. I was also a bit fatigued. I was sick of busting bikes and dogs and horses chasing feral cattle, and I just about had enough of those bloody things. And so I shot back over to Queensland, where I had a little cowgirl sabbatical and sat on a droving mob here in central Queensland. And it was around this time that I actually started really reflecting. I spent the day on a horse, and I would start fixing up all of the mistakes and all these bad habits that I'd actually taught my dogs and my horses throughout these busy days of contracting. I started reflecting a lot on what I'd learnt and where I was going, and a great deal on the mentors that I'd actually had throughout this time. But to be entirely honest with you, I was actually pretty bloody lost. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no real clue at all. And I was constantly hearing this echo that I should go and do something more tangible than just chase cows. Or there was another echo that I always heard, and it was, you can't chase cows forever, Emily. But the truth is, it was what I absolutely loved doing. And so I lent on my mentors a lot throughout that time, and they asked me what I was most interested in the beef industry. And I made the decision that there was nothing I was more interested in than bovine repro. I loved spaying and preg testing at that time. It was one of my favourite jobs. And so I made the decision that it would be worth pursuing a career in bovine repro. Now, it would have been wise that I would go on to study veterinary science, and I still had a deferred offer around that time, and I was heavily considering going and hitting the books for 6 years. However, I did not want to learn about any other species other than cattle. I detested the idea. And so with the support of my mentors, I made the decision that it was worth pursuing the career without actually going down the veterinary science path. And so while the dogs blocked the lead, I would spend every single day with my head in a book or a journal article, a scientific report or a manual on bovine repro or ET or IVF in cattle or all sorts of things. And even to the point where I actually even started learning Spanish. I had this idea in my head that I was going to go to South America and I was going to work in the beef industry over there where they were rapidly advancing their herds with some pretty amazing technologies. And all these little skills that I've gained throughout my life have constantly come in handy, particularly the Spanish. Last year I actually did make it over to South America and it saved my backside 1 or 2 times over there, which was good. So eventually I moved down to central New South Wales and later back to Queensland. All that time that I'd spent with my head in these bovine repro books had come in handy, and I'd scored a job with 2 veterinary companies and was mostly working with those businesses, preg testing and AIing and doing semen testing, collection and embryo flushing and embryology, freezing embryos, and all of those sorts of things. It was a very, very steep learning curve, but it was an opportunity that was too good to be true, so I grabbed it with both hands. And so around this time, I think it's really, really important that you recognise that within the beef industry, there isn't actually a surplus of people. There isn't a surplus of people or surplus of skills. And so people within the industry are incredibly supportive. It doesn't matter whether you're male, female, young, old, university educated, or educated in the school of hard knocks. People will support you and they will help you to get where you want to go, regardless of whether you are technically qualified or not. But I think it's really important to recognise that there's 2 things that you require in order to get wherever you want to go, and that's a willingness to learn and commitment. And I think it's also really important to recognise that eventually I did go on and study, and I'm still continuing to study today, a Bachelor of Agribusiness and Bachelor of Animal Science. I think it's also important to recognise that there isn't a right way to go about your pathway. Unfortunately, by not attending university full-time and on campus, I've missed out on a lot of really, really valuable connections and relationships that I would have had going and having fun with all the ag students at university. But on the opposite side of things, by doing my university now, I'm able to apply what I'm actually learning in university to our business. And vice versa, I'm allowed to allow the opportunity where I can use our business concepts to actually write my assignments, and it just creates a much more enriching and engaging experience at university. I think it's also important to recognise how incredibly lucky I am. You see, in a normal breeding and genetics advisor role, you would have completed a degree in animal science or agribusiness, and I'm very, very fortunate that they let me in the back door without actually having finished my degree. I'm also incredibly lucky that throughout my role, I have the immense privilege of working across the entire supply chain, which is one of my most favourite things in the world is working across the whole supply chain and seeing how it's all intertwined. And so within my role, I do a lot of breeding and genetics analytics. I work a lot with the property managers running AI, ET and IVF programs, sorting out and coordinating all of the bulls that go out to the stations every year. But I also work in innovation projects which span the feedlot, the processing facility, and also throughout many of my recent travels, I've had the opportunity to do quite a bit of speaking and connecting with consumers and chefs all across the world, and actually telling the story of how AACO's beef has actually come to land on their plates wherever that may be. I don't really know what I want to actually do though. I still have no bloody idea. I know what I enjoy, I know what I don't enjoy. I know what skills I possess and what knowledge I have, but I'm not actually really too concerned because I don't think any of us really do have any clue what we actually want to be bloody doing. I do know what areas I need to work on. I know what skills I need to improve, but to be honest, I'm not actually too concerned about what I'm going to do. I know that I'm always going to work in the beef industry in some capacity, but we'll see where it takes me. I do plan next year that I will be going. I actually had the incredible opportunity to go over to the USA for about a month and a half earlier this year, where I was largely meeting with businesses over there looking at livestock innovations and opportunities for advancing Australia's bovine repro industry. And based on that experience, it was incredible, absolutely incredible to go over there and check it all out. But based on that experience, I made the decision that I'll be heading back over there next year and working full time with some of those businesses just for 2 or 3 week blocks, just to go and really get a good idea at what they're actually working on over there. And also decided that I'm going to go and work with our AACO's commercial team, where I'll be based in New York for about a month and live out my little girl dream of living in New York and be talking to mostly chefs and consumers about AACO's beef and how it actually makes it the whole way through the supply chain, which is going to be an incredible opportunity. But as Lauren Angus will actually speak about a little bit later, it is probably one of the most enriching experiences to go and live overseas. It's incredibly challenging, but it's probably one of the best things that you'll ever do. I cannot recommend it highly enough. But if there's anything that I want you to get out of everything I've just said, it's probably that reputation is so important. In an industry that's built on relationships, integrity, and trust, it's so vitally important that you keep your reputation in mind. Because reputations take a lifetime to build, however, they really only take a moment to compromise. But also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. My best learnings have come from all of the mistakes I've made. But if there's one thing I know, it's just that you've got to let the good outweigh the bad. But I think that's enough from me. I think it's over to Charles Pitman.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Charles Pitman, and I work for GDL out of Rockhampton. So I suppose where do I start? I'm born and bred in Moree in New South Wales. I went to school there, and then I went to boarding school in Toowoomba, and I went to Toowoomba Prep and Toowoomba Grammar. While I was at school, I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I think I had about 5 jobs on my mind. And then when I left, I just decided I'll just go to university. So I went to university in Armidale at New England and started studying Bachelor of Agricultural Science, and I majored in animal production. So yeah, we did a lot with sheep and cattle and horses and pigs and poultry and everything. So yeah, I did 3 years there, and I think they were probably the 3 funnest years of my life. Made a lot of connections there, a lot of friends that I still speak to now. It was a great time anyway. And then moving on from there, when I left, I went back to Moree and worked for a family, Graham and Vicky Gall. They were based out of Taroom, and they had about 10,000 acres up there. And then we had adjustment cattle out at Quilpie and down at Wildgat. So I worked for them, and they had farming country at Moree as well, so about 8,000 acres down there. So I worked for them for about 3 years and certainly learnt a lot. We had every aspect nearly of the production side of agriculture. So we were growing grain, legumes and barley. We had about 2,000 head of cattle as well. So yeah, there was certainly a lot going on there in that operation. And Graham Gall, you talk about mentors, and Graham Gall was certainly, I think he's been the mentor of my life anyway so far. I probably talk to him more than my own parents, So yeah, it certainly is important. It is very important grabbing hold of a mentor as well that you can come back on and really learn from. But anyway, and while I was there working there, I decided that I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something more than just working on a place. So to me, first off, it was trying to earn enough money to buy myself a machine, and then use a machine to make money. And then I decided, well, I think I buy a machine, and I'm relying off the seasons, I'm relying off it how it's running and everything to make money. So then I fell back on, the old family business, which was being a stock agent. So my grandfather, Alan Rowe, he was a stock agent, and he worked for Cumming. He actually started, he worked for Elders and started Cumming, which then turned into Auctions Plus. And then I've got 2 uncles that were agents. My father's an agent, and my brother's an agent as well. So naturally, I think every male in our family is a stock and station agent. So I went back into the family business and started work for GDL. I originally got the job because I lived with one of the directors, Andrew Wardle. I was best mates with his son Harry and lived down in Armidale with him, and we spent a lot of years together having a bit of fun down there and trying to learn a thing or two. But anyway, and I knew Andrew, and then Andrew got me into the job that way. So I came up here 18 months ago, so the start of last year, and it's probably been the best decision of my life. I love it. I love the job. I love everything it entails. I like the socialising aspect because there is a lot of socialising. The cattle work, going out and drafting cattle and pulling cattle into lines to sell. Certainly great. Auctioneering. I started auctioneering last year, and weekly now I'll do the weaner heifers there at Gracemere. So yeah, that's probably one of the best parts of the job, I think, is the auctioneering side. But yeah, no, it's a great industry to be in too, and doing the best by your clients and by your vendors and making your company really stand out is it's a fantastic way to go about it. You know, we've got a fantastic industry in Australia, I think, and certainly the young people coming through right now. It's really promising for what's in the future as well. But yeah, anyway, I think that's probably enough from me. That was short and sweet. I just sort of I'll wing that. But anyway, thank you very much. I'll pass on to Ben Cumming from Tees Australia.
All right, thank you. So good morning, everyone. I'm Ben Cumming. I'm the current livestock manager of the Tees Australia Lakes Creek plant just down the road here. I grew up in a town, Dysart, 3 hours away. Just grew up in town. Dad was a carpenter and the town manager, so he looked after all the single man's camps for all the towns around. And then I came to Rockhampton for high school, where I went to the Rockhampton Grammar School. So looking back on high school, if you asked me would I have pictured myself up here talking to you guys today, that would definitely be a no, because I wouldn't have even been one of you guys sitting out there. I wasn't involved in agriculture very much when I was a kid, apart from on school holidays, going to mates' places, helping out there is probably my first experiences. But yeah, when I was in high school, I wasn't ag inclined at all, really. I did a lot of commerce, economics subjects, and even did a lot of legal studies as well, and that's where sort of my passions were. When I would have been 14, 15, I would have thought I'd be living in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, doing some sort of economics was really my passion. I loved the trading, I loved watching markets, and I loved all business aspects as well as some legal things as well. It wasn't until I was about grade 12, my girlfriend at the time, she was from a property of mixed farming and cattle operation in central Queensland, and I started going out to her place and helping her parents and grandparents and uncles with just the day-to-day runnings of that during school holidays, and then over the Christmas holidays when I left school before I went to university. So with that in mind, with my schooling, I went down to UQ and I was studying a dual degree of commerce and economics, which I really enjoyed. I did about a year and a half down there, made a lot of friends there, but all uni holidays I was always going back home or back to her place, working for her dad and grandparents. And so where I really got the sort of love for agriculture, cattle and farming. So with that in mind, I did a year and a half in Brisbane. As I said, I did like commerce and economics, and I still do. I still keep myself involved in all things like that, continue reading what's going on there, but really found a love for agriculture. So I decided that I'd go back and work for them. So I did that for 5 to 6 years, while I, probably 2 years of that, was without any study, and then 2 years in I started to study agriculture externally, which with my work there and the study, they went hand in hand. I was able to relate my study to work, and I was able to use my work within my study and things like that. So whilst doing that, the study and work aspects really went well together, and it really helped provide me with the additional learning, so I could take what I was learning in class and through my lectures, I could then put that into practice, but also I had a practice behind the theory as well, so that we could be learning the theory behind something, and I was able to actually see that in play in the paddock. I did both farming and livestock subjects and business subjects all throughout my agriculture degree, so I got all aspects of that, still being in touch with the business, which are like the business subjects, which was where my passion was originally with economics and commerce. However, I then got more into sort of the animal sciences as well as the science behind a lot of farming and things like that. So I finished up my degree in about 2019, and sort of even then I sort of didn't really know where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to do something within agriculture and use that degree for something, but I just wasn't quite sure where I wanted to end up. And then so, as it is for most people, a bit of family succession comes into play, and I thought I'd get out of there and just leave the family succession to the family, and I thought I'd go out on my own, go out and try and do something else. So that's when I ended up getting the job with Tees, where I started as a trainee cattle buyer. And I had to go back down to Beenleigh for 6 months, where I worked pretty closely with a man who's Glenn Poole, who's now our executive livestock manager. I worked under him for 6 months before I came back up to central Queensland. Did a lot of work around the Billawheeler and Rockhampton plants, and now, the livestock manager of our Lakes Creek plant. So day to day, my day might start at 4 a.m, whether it's the stockman calling because some cattle haven't arrived, or a truck's broken down and the cattle won't make it for today's kill. So it may start as early as 3 or 4 with a call of a truck or from a stockman saying there's no cattle here, and then it'll go through every aspect. So as a livestock manager, I'm still a cattle buyer for the most part, but then I've just got other duties around the plant. So we've got it's not just buying cattle, it's a lot of accounts, a lot of compliance and things like that. We've got to make sure we have the right cattle to meet the kill that we need, about trying to pair things up like that, as well as your NVDs, making sure that all paperwork is sort of completed and accurate before we can process any cattle. But once sort of the cattle are to the knocking box, that's not necessarily the end of my job, but that's the biggest part. I've still got to try and have the appropriate cattle there that then the plant can process in a sort of in the most efficient way. So we don't want 1,400 grain-fed bullocks on one day's kill. At the same time, we don't want 1,400 240 kilo cows. It's about getting that kill mix right. So a big part of my day is talking to our other buyers. So there's a team of buyers we have in Queensland, and trying to work out the best cattle mix we can for the plant to make sure the plant runs efficiently, but we're still getting our numbers. So we're not we don't work a day where we're going, we'll do 1,350 today, 1,350 today, and we'll do 1,420 tomorrow. It's sort of, we have a kill target, and we've got to get that target every day. And that comes a lot to balancing things, because as you know, with trucks, someone might book 3 decks. Depending what they get out of the paddock, or depending on the size of the cattle, that 3 decks might be 60 head, it might be 66, it might be 72. So we've got to have enough knowledge of who your producers are and who the cattle are that you're buying, whose cattle they are and how they'll load. So that comes back to building relationships with people, so you know what their cattle are, what their cattle are going to do for Tees, for our business on the kill floor, as well as in the boning room, and things like that. I'll probably be the third speaker to touch on reputation. Reputation is a big thing in my job as well. If you say you're going to do something, I've got to really execute and deliver on what I've said I can do. If I can tell someone I can kill 3 decks on this day, and then 10 minutes later something else happens and that may change that, I've got to work really hard to still deliver what I've said, because other people are making plans on me, on what I've said. So if I've told someone I've got 3 decks space here, and they say, yep, I'll take that, well, they could have already made 2 phone calls in that 10 minutes and organised a helicopter, organised trucks, or got onto their contractors and things like that. So that reputation is a big part of maintaining a good reputation. Is a big part of what I've got to do. People have to trust me, and I have to trust that they'll deliver on what they've told me. Because until those cattle are on my ramp, they're not there and they can't be counted for the kill. So that's probably one big thing that I've really learned, is that reputation. It can be hard to keep up and maintain, but it's probably the biggest thing that I need to keep, because I've got to rely on a lot of people, and a lot of people sort of rely on me to do what I've said I could do. So if I was talking to myself at your guys' age, yeah, this wouldn't have even been in the picture for me to be here. But things, you just sort of go with what happens. As I said, I had a girlfriend in high school. That's now led me down this way. Otherwise, I would have thought I would have been an economist or a lawyer in Brisbane, Sydney or Melbourne. So don't let that sort of school-based stuff hold you down. I was a pretty average student at school. I did a lot of, as I said, I did all the business subjects, did a bit of PE, but was by no means, I wasn't the brightest. I just sort of kept my head down, kept pretty quiet, got my work done. Nothing really struck my interest too much, so I didn't put probably 100% of my effort in. And then even when I went down to university in Brisbane, I was passionate about economics, but my grades were average. I was passing, getting credits, things like that. Went back to the property, really found a passion for agriculture. Went back to university, didn't necessarily try any harder, but it clicked, so ended up there. And just when you're enjoying it, it makes it easy to get good grades and things like that. So I went from being a pretty average student in high school to graduating with a GPA of 6.7. So when you put your mind to it, if you find something that you enjoy, everything sort of clicks and becomes really easy. So that's probably it from me. I'll pass it over to Bo.
Yeah, morning everyone. Thank you to Sarah for asking me about this about 9:30, but happy to help. I grew up a shy boy at Boona. It's in the scenic rim, not far from Brisbane now, on a hobby block there. Dairy farmers, my family was. We had some adjustment country we ran cattle on, traded cattle, had a small feedlot, did trade in that. Dad was a pretty avid prime cattle shower. Grew up, prime cattle. We had a few lead steers growing up. Did a couple cattle camps. I think they were limousine ones in my day when I was in primary school. Did a local, we had a local state school. There was 500 head there back then. 500 head, here we go. 500 students, quite big for a small town. I did, they sort of had a cattle team. I did that for a few years, but then started working for a few fitters and stuff. Saw me go to the ECA Sydney show. Those type of things, growing up, I suppose, pretty common. A lot of us want to be vets, that was number one for me. Always loved the maths science. I did OP subjects, maths science. I think that's ATAR now, isn't it, I think? Obviously, the vet requirement for university entry is quite high. Didn't do that. Went for an animal studies program at Gatton. Did that. And then obviously, I guess, probably hit, that 8, 9, 10, science, maths, pretty easy. You can just cruise along. 11, 12, suddenly I got to start doing a bit of work. Probably didn't do that. First year at uni, probably didn't do the work I needed to. So it was quite a bit of a wake-up call. Had to redo some subjects. It was a good, like I said, good kick up the bum. Managed to still complete that time, complete my degree in the time that is meant to happen. Went from there, always, cattle buying was always something that, was always in the background. You never saw many opportunities when I was young that, there was all these old guys you saw around at sales and whatnot, and always thought it'd be great. But I was very fortunate. There was, my final year of uni, there was actually 2 companies who were advertising for trainee buyer positions. I was actually offered both of those and had to make a choice. So I chose, I worked for Tees Australia. I did 10 years with them. So I was lucky I had my job lined up before I'd graduated. So, but what, the Tees, Jeff Tees at the time, he thought, he's going to give me a job. He wanted me to get a bit more experience first. So that entitled, we'll send you out to our feedlot at Condamine for 6 months, working the stock team, pen riding and all that sort of stuff. Turned into 12. Anyway, that's okay, we're on track. So then, further 9 years for Tees. Had a few bases with that. When I left in 2015, I was actually in the position that Ben was just describing. Did a lot more cattle judging, mostly prime shows, few stud shows. There's not many shows or sales probably east of Emerald and from Mackay to Tenterfield that I haven't done. There's a few gaps I'm happy to do. But pretty much, yeah, you know, that vet thing, you know, we're all told, yeah, I like science and maths subjects, but you got to do that, you want to get into it. It's pretty evident once you get into that university system that it doesn't matter. You do a term, you can change tracks, this or that. You can get your GPA, Ben was touching on GPAs, you can get that up, you can upgrade your marks and like stuff like that. So I think my main advice there, school, if you know, you don't have to, there's other ways around. You can do bridging courses later, you can get into the system, you can upgrade. So do the subjects you like or you're good at, is my thing. Don't worry about the tell us this at school, we've got to do that. So 2015, I left Tees. I went to Toowoomba with my family and worked for a company, Allied Beef, for just over 12 years. So they do a lot of marketing, a bit of financing and that type of work. So I did that before my in-laws, so my wife's family. They'd sort of ticked off their succession thing, and an opportunity with an acquisition came up, which was always floating around, but it sort of come forward to come and, yeah, join the in-laws. So we moved to there, to Theodore in 2016. So I sort of look after a background in operation there. We've got the 2 properties, so we've got a feedlot and a lot of cropping and backgrounding, and then just the dry growing background of cattle there. We have a Coles contract, so we supply B-double of cattle every fortnight now. So pretty much, yeah, I'm still doing my purchasing of the cattle and running that, and also looking after the property where I am. Yeah, big things, I guess, is like I say, what they tell you, you can have many changes, what you want to do now. Yeah, you don't have to set with, there's lots of opportunities. The other things is, yeah, nothing, when you get to uni, that's the other, you know, they make you, oh, you're going to be great, you're going to get a job here. The reality is you've still got to go and start at those entry levels, you bring in and whatnot. It might see you accelerate earlier, but also don't think you're above that. I was 3 or 4 years into cattle buying with Tees. I was actually taking around other young guys and training them up. And I don't know if it was wet weather or something was slow, and I had to go out in the yards rock picking. So don't be above anything. I think that gets acknowledged probably by employers. Yeah, don't think you're above anything. I think that helps out. Yeah, what you want to do now, I don't think, yeah, you don't have to stick with that. You can change. Ag is so varied. I was telling Sarah, my wife does a bit of work for Queensland Cotton. She has a teleconference every Friday, and they have a person in a cotton to market position where their job is to go around retail stores and look who's putting cotton tags on it. So we had a girl this week with me doing work experience, and she's coming up to, I think, to a Rocky school this year, this semester. She's doing ag, she wants to do fashion, and we're like, hey, there's a great way of combining your ag. Like ag is so varied. When I was at Tees, you know, I was living in Brisbane a few times. You know, it's not all in the Kimberleys. It's many and varied, I guess. It's not set in stone, you can go and change. Lots of people we know in the Theodore community, they've all got trades, you know, come back on family farms and that type of thing. Now it's been a great grounding. It shows that, yeah, you can commit to something, complete it. Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. I saw roughly a quarter of you guys put down trade might be an option when you finish school. 6 of us up there, only one that went the trade path. Tough gig. I didn't come from a rural background. I grew up in Emerald. My dad was an electrician, he was a tradesman. Always interested in horses when I was a kid, mad on horses. Cruising around town in Emerald, riding my horse everywhere. Running up and down the golf course, stealing golf balls, all the fun stuff what you do when you're a naughty kid in town. Build a reputation for being a naughty kid in town. Everyone gets to know you. An old fella on the edge of town rung up Mum one day and said, I've got some cattle, I run a bit short of grass, but Josh like to come and tail some cattle out for me. So he paid me on the school holidays to tail a herd of Limousin cows around town wherever I could find spare grass for them. And that's how I started to like cattle. From there, I went to boarding school, St Brennan's in Yeppoon. played a bit of footy. That's not how it all panned out. But they had an excellent ag program there. Through the ag program, started doing a few shows. Ended up here, just like you guys, junior beef. Didn't have any cattle of my own. There were some adults around that used to help out back in them days. And it's through them people help us get a leg up to where we end up, where we are now. Finished school, through the horses, got an apprenticeship with an old fella in town as a diesel fitter. Old Bill Lane. Bill was into his cutting horses. And most of our work was in the bush. We used to go to some pretty remote sort of areas, isolated spots. We used to camp next to the dozers we were building, fixing, rolling our swags out, eating off fires. Got to know some people in that game in some very remote places, run their cattle. Began to get a bit of a love for it there. Finished my apprenticeship, nearly finished my apprenticeship, wanted to buy a house in Emerald. Bank wouldn't give me money to buy a house in Emerald. So I was like, how can I earn a bit more money so I can afford to buy a house? I'll run some cattle. So I went back to the bank lady and said, if I run a few cattle here and there, increase my income, can I get a loan? And that's how I got my first loan for my first block. From there, still diesel fitting, still in my trade, and that's how we pay off things. Got to work. Slowly, a couple of opportunities come with neighbours and things like that. Buy another one, build a bit of equity, buy another one, and then kind of end up where we are now. We've got country at one, we've got country at Denver, we've got some cattle on adjustment. It's not easy, it's still hard work, and I'm still juggling another job, but we're in the game, in the best industry on earth, the cattle industry, and that's how it works. Everyone talked about reputation. I think everywhere we go, we leave an impression. Every single kid here today will leave an impression on somebody. The impression we leave through camps like this builds a contact that we might be able to draw on later. And it's through them contacts where we find little edges and little gains that other people don't have. We're very lucky to be here in places like this. Get to know each other, be kind to each other, introduce yourself to each other. Because when you're adults, Sarah and I, you guys, it'll be little things like, oh, can you help me out do this? Can you help me out do that? And the contacts are very important, little connections when you get older. As a 16-year-old, I would never have imagined I'd be standing in front of a group of anybody talking. I couldn't even get my assignments done on time. But life leads us to different areas, and if you're honest and work hard, everyone will do well here. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Which brings me to my next speaker, Lauren Angus. Thank you very much. Here she is.
Hey everyone, I'm Lauren. I was born and raised in central Queensland up near Moranbah on a cattle property. Growing up, I had a lot of different ideas about what I wanted to do with my life. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a vet. I then went into high school. I tossed around a few different ideas and couldn't work one out, so I went back home, did a gap year. Did a bit of odd stuff all over in my gap year, but mostly at home. Spent a bit of time in the feedlot at home. Decided that that was what I really wanted to do, something like genetics or nutrition or something like that. So I applied to, I asked a friend of my dad's who used to breed our bulls for us. I said, hey, if I want to do genetics and nutrition, where would be the best place to go to uni for it? And he said, look, if you really want to learn anything, you need to go to the States. And so I said, righto, and so I applied to a few different unis over in the States, and I ended up getting into Colorado. So I packed up everything and moved over to Colorado and went to uni over there for 4 years. and it was probably the best thing I ever did. But going into it, it was really eye-opening, just the different industry and everything over there, but learning all of those different things that they do differently to us. I went into it thinking I wanted to do nutrition and genetics and that kind of stuff. And then I took one meat science class while I was over there, and I was like, wow, this is the cool stuff. This is really cool. So I then took that a little bit and ran with it and really focused on meat science. And then came out the back of it and came home, and my family, we decided to build an abattoir on farm. So now we've got ourselves a fully vertically integrated beef system, so which has opened up a lot of opportunities, but most excitingly, I'm now running a beef plant, which if I look back at myself in high school, I would have thought that I would never do something like that. So it's very exciting, it's very challenging, definitely comes with a lot of challenges working with that many people, managing that many people, but and myself as a pretty shy person, it's not something I ever saw myself doing, being in charge of that many people and doing so much in a day, but it has been really exciting, and I reckon it's got a lot of potential still. But I think the most exciting part about it is building a team and finding those other connections from the industry and bringing them all together. I think that's one of the most exciting parts about our industry, is the different kinds of people that you can work with and the different kinds of people that you can find that all have the same kind of passion for our industry. And I think that's really cool. That was something I found definitely over in the States, is having a lot of different perspectives on things actually really helps to create a new and exciting kind of outcome for a problem. I think it's really interesting to see how those different people's dynamics work. I think that was one of the best things that I did from going over in the States, was making those connections and meeting those different kinds of people, because now I've got myself a pretty extensive network that I can rely on and go back to if I ever need anything. Like, you know, I've got friends in Texas who I can, you know, ask questions about bulls and breeds, and I've got friends up in Colorado who want to come over here for work experience or want to send their friends over here for work experience and stuff like that, and you can help those people with those things. I think that's one of the most important things you can do while you're young, is just get out and take every opportunity that you can. And so if something like that comes up, or you want to do something like that, just go out and make it happen, especially while you're young. It's really, I think that is one of the best ways to develop yourself as a person, is just to see different perspectives and see different ways that people operate. But yeah, so I've been at home for 2.5 years now running a beef plant, which has been wild, but we get it done. I've done a few other things while I'm on my way. So last year I was a part of the Gromactin Beef Connections program with Emily. So I joined up for that because I was sitting there and decided that I really needed to do something to push myself a little bit in terms of personal development and leadership if I was going to be a leader within our business. And so I put myself out there and applied for the program and got into the program, and it was another one of the greatest things I've done. It was very good for the stuff that we learnt that year. That was really cool, and I've started a very exciting project on that front as well. So yeah, just lots of things to do basically, but I reckon that's my advice for all of you guys, and it would be my advice again for my younger self, is anytime you get an opportunity or anytime you see something that you want to do, go out there and make it happen. And yeah, just take a hold of it while you can. I think it's, and especially like everyone's talked about, building those networks and building those reputations. If you've got a good reputation and you've got a connection of people, or you know someone who might know someone who can make something happen that you want to make it happen, if you've got a bit of a good name for yourself, you can get out there you can ask those kinds of people if they can help you with stuff, and a lot of them will be more than happy to make it happen. So I think, yeah, that would be the main pieces of advice that I would have for you guys, would be to, yeah, build those connections, take every opportunity you can get. I think that's about all I've got.
Relates more to what you're currently doing. So agribusiness or the animal science, agricultural science?
That's a really good question. I need to probably give you a little bit more context around that too. So I am still studying at the moment, and it's a dual degree in animal science and also agribusiness. To be entirely honest with you, I quite passionately hate my animal science career. It is like pulling things to me. It's so agonizing to do. Which is really interesting considering I would say at least 80% of my work is animal science based. I hate the fact that what we're actually learning within university context at the moment is so far behind what we're actually putting into practice within our business. I mean, the primary kind of concepts that I'm learning within my animal science degree are applicable, but in terms of actually putting it into day-to-day practice, the researchers and the tech developers that are actually working within the business are so much further ahead than what the degree would actually involve. So I'm finding a lot of these concepts are quite outdated. I actually enjoy the agribusiness degree so much more, and the main reason why is because I find it really, really challenging. I find particularly the sales and marketing aspects of that degree really challenging. I love analysing the supply chain. I love working on budgets and finance. So I would say that the animal science part is probably more directly related to my role. However, I would spend far more time, everything that I'm actually need to learn in order to apply to my day-to-day business, I just go straight to the research. I kind of bypass that to learning. You just go straight to the most recent research that's been published, or rely heavily on the events and the researchers that are actually published. I hope that helps.
I'd just add to that, Claire, when I was at uni too, and I did the animal studies, but I could still choose business subjects, or you can choose agronomy subjects or whatever. Like I say, you've still got subject selection in that. You can veer a little bit left and right.
Question. What do you do with your blood in your abattoirs? Like, do you just let it sit? Do you have a market for it? And another question, what would be your average man carcasses with the average weight?
So your blood goes to meat and bone meal, digestion and things like that. Average weight varies on plants, it varies seasonally. I'd say at the moment, over the last few weeks, we've been averaging about 280 kilos, but there's a big spread on that, so we're killing cows out in the north and out the west, that'll mob those would average 230 kilos to 240 kilos, and then we can kill a mob of EU steers that average 360, or some grain-fed bullocks that could be average 380 to 400. So we have in terms of plants, the further north we go, we've had a consultant up here last week, and he does a lot of work with a lot of abattoirs, and Lakes Creek, he really enjoys going into the yards there, because you have a huge range of cattle. You can go down to sort of Cannon Hill or something like that, you almost throw a blanket over all the cattle they'll kill. They'll average 280 kilos, be the same size carcass, whereas here so our daily average weight can be a bit, cannot show the whole picture of what cattle we're actually processing in a day. So yeah, average, at the moment we're averaging about 280 kilos and 1,400 head, but yeah, we can go anything as light as 180 kilos up to, we had a bullock the other day, that was 540. So yeah, it's a big range.
I think now, this being directed at Lauren, who's popped this one up. Are there any other countries that you recommend studying at? Who's popped that question through? Wait, okay, was it directed at Lauren specifically or the whole panel? Because Lauren has studied overseas. Although Emily has travelled overseas for work as well. So we might go to Lauren. So specifically in agriculture, animal science, meat science, Lauren, other countries that stand out on universities and degrees?
University is definitely the US. I think they've got a very different industry to us, but in terms of research and the ideas that they're kicking around with over there, they are a long way ahead of us, especially in the more sciencey side of things. I think there's some pretty cool stuff research-wise and uni-wise coming out of like the UK and that as well. But yeah, other than that, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it definitely is worth at least not necessarily studying, but at least getting over and seeing some other countries and how they do things is definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there's a great university in Canada for genetics.
Yeah.
I think livestock genetics is a huge field, raising technologies a field, and state of mind, the University of Canada suggested for that. But a great point about just not necessarily going to study, but there's some great programs that link you up for even like gap year farm work over in the licensed states in Canada and the UK as well. So taking those type of opportunities to go overseas just for work and establishing this wonderful network globally and probably our last question, because we're nearly at time, this one may be we'll put it to the panel. What university is best for reproduction work? More specifically, vet, being like full studying vet, repro work. Yeah. So, as for degrees for repro work and veterinary work, is that right? Not any other questions here? Okay. Repro work or vet work? What's the answer there? Is there only gap?
JCU, Council Office.
Yeah, JCU is really getting into quite a way down now with offering vet. And as I understand, really attracts up livestock, large animal vet students as well at Council.
There might be one in Perth too.
Yeah, Murdoch does a pretty good vet program as well.
Melbourne,
Yeah.
as well. Melbourne University has a vet degree as well. And actually going down south has a really good opportunity for getting more exposure to other industries such as the sheep industry as well, going to southern universities. There was a question about UNE. Thoughts on UNE? Is it a good study?
Yeah, I was there.
Charles, you went to UNE?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Well, Armidale, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great university, yeah, no, it's certainly a good university. Cold in there, but no, it's a great uni. They've got a lot of different subjects and avenues you can go there. Agriculture, got a huge spring, massive spring,
Yeah, that's kind of on the border of the temperate southern agriculture.
Yeah.
East coast and northern agriculture. Oh, really strong meat science.
Yeah. So Peter Gilchrist, he runs. He still do it. Yeah, he still runs meat science at UNE, and he's an absolute wealth of knowledge. That was my favourite subject, even though I wasn't interested in becoming a meat scientist. Was meat science at uni just from the teacher. Yeah. So the teacher's got a massive part to play in it, and UNE do have a lot of really industry-leading teachers and mentors down there.
And animal genetics too, because AgBoo, that runs Breed Plan, is stationed at UNE as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Genetics. We've also got CQU Robbie now, which they didn't not that many years ago,